We go to the top of the second inning now, and it'll be the 4, 5, and 6 hitters for Houston. John Singleton, the first batter, and Cologne's first to pitch, John, is just outside for ball 1. John Singleton, the first baseman, is only batting 167, 13 homers and 44 RBIs. John Singleton from Harbor City, California, just 23 years old. Ironic, the first 3 batters up for Houston this inning are all 23. Getting a look-see here on the last day of the regular season. Cologne looks into the signs from Juan Centeno, and the 1-1 pitch to John Singleton is just off the corner. It's 2-1. Ironic that Houston Astros, now in the American League since 2013, was originally a National League team playing there on the last day of the season. Houston and the Mets both came into the league in expansion in 1962. And a line drive out to left field. Matt Dendecker quite can't handle it, and John Singleton will wind up in second base, and it looks like they're going to give him a double. They will not score that an error. Dendecker had his glove on it, but could not hang on to it, and they will give John Singleton a double. And the center fielder is going to come up now, Jake Marisniak, also 23 years old, from Tampa, Florida. This is his second year in the majors, limited playing time. He's just been up basically for a cup of coffee. Yeah, the original expansion year, the first for the Major League, was 1961 when the Washington Senators moved and became the Minnesota Twins. They put a new Washington Senators team in Washington, D.C., and they also was created the Los Angeles Angels, who started playing in L.A.'s Wrigley Field, where they used to film a lot of the old Hollywood movies. And they went from a 154-game format to a 162-game format in the American League, from 8 teams to 10 teams. The first pitch to Marisniak was fouled off to the left field line for strike 1. Yeah, going back to the turn of the century, the modern day era, when there was originally 16 teams, no divisions, you went right to the World Series if you won the league. There was 8 teams in each league right up until 1961. 1961 was the only year where 2 leagues had different amount of games, 154 in the National League still, and 162 in the American League. The second pitch is in for a call strike to Jake Marisniak at 0-2. Cologne pitch it from the stretch, and it's a swing and a miss up by Marisniak for strike 3 for the first out of the second inning. Actually, when the Mets and the Astros came into the league in 62 and the National League went to a 162-game format, there was 10 teams in each league, and they still basically, you win your league and you went right to the World Series up until 1969 when they added 4 additional teams. The San Diego Padres, the Montreal Expos, who are now the Washington Nationals since 2005, the Kansas City Royals, and the Seattle Pilots. The Seattle Pilots, for those of you who do not know, were only in Seattle for 1 year. The following year, in 1970, they moved and became the Milwaukee Brewers to this day. And eventually they moved to the National League when they started realigning the divisions. And now Houston's back in the American League just to balance out. And because of the 15 teams in each league now, we have an unbalanced schedule which requires at least 1 interleague game every day of the year. The pitch by Cologne, again for a call strike, it's 0-2 to the catcher, Mac Sassy. 1 out. John Singleton taking a short lead from second base, and Cologne pitching out of the stretch. Yeah, with the expansion era, we went from 16 teams to 30 teams in baseball, which we have today. And this next pitch by Cologne is a little low in the dirt, and it is 1-2. Teams actually didn't start moving until 1953. There was an expansion, but there was a deal, and the Boston Braves moved to Milwaukee, became the Milwaukee Braves in the National League. The following year, 1954, there was a team called the St. Louis Browns, and yes, St. Louis actually had 2 teams at one time. They moved in 1954 and became what is known today as the Baltimore Orioles. Cologne pitching from the stretch on a 1-2 count, and Max Sassy fouls it off for the count to remain at 1-2. In 1955, the A's, now in Oakland of course, moved from Philadelphia and became the Kansas City A's. So 3 years in a row, 53, 54, and 55, you had two teams moving. Now the Braves and the A's are the only team to move 3 different times and keep the same name. Eventually in 1966, the Braves would move from Milwaukee to Atlanta, which they are today, and became the Atlanta Braves. And the pitch by Colon is fouled off again. The count's still at 1-2. Singleton at second with 1 out. The Mets are up 1-0 here in the second inning. In 1966, the Angels Stadium opened, and which was called Angel Stadium, Edison Field. 1968, the A's moved from Kansas City and became the Oakland A's, which they still remain today. So the A's and the Braves moved 3 times. And the next pitch by Colon to Sassy is a fly ball out to center field. Granderson's not going to get it. It goes over his head, bounces off the warning track for a ground rule double, which will enable Singleton to score the tying run from second base. Ground rule double, he's allowed to move up 2 bases, and it is 1-1 here in the second inning with Max Stassi at second base. Looking at the replay, Granderson just got a late jump on that ball, clearly over his head. Juan Lagares, who's not playing today, would have definitely gotten to that ball. He's a pretty amazing center fielder, probably the best in the league right now. And now the batter up for Houston, with 1 out still, is Gregorio Petit, the third baseman. Gregorio Petit, 29-year-old from Venezuela, batting .280 this year with 2 homers and 9 RBIs. The right-hander looks in for the pitch, and Colon catches the outside corner for strike 1. Max Stassi taking a very limited lead at second base. In 1958, the ultimate move, the first major move from coast to coast in baseball, because in the 50s you didn't have any baseball west of the Mississippi. And Gregorio Petit pops out to the second baseman, Wilmer Flores, for the second out. So Max Stassi, the catcher, remains at second base with 2 outs, and it is still 1-1 here in the second inning. That will bring up the shortstop, Jonathan Villar, another 23-year-old from the Dominican Republic. He is batting .211 with 7 home runs this year. And it looks like the Mets are going to intentionally walk Villar with first base open. Not your typical move today. You might want to think about it's early in the game. It's 1-1. His average is in the low 200s, not far from the interstate. And the pitcher will do up next. They're thinking that's the easy out, but many times that has come back to bite a team. I would go for this batter, try to get the out, and have the pitcher leading off the next inning, but the Mets are choosing this option. In 1958, the Giants and the Dodgers moved after the 57 season to California. The Giants chose San Francisco, and the Dodgers chose LA. And New York, and especially the Brooklyn Borough, was devastated, and there was no National League team in New York until 1962. And now, with the intentional walk, it'll bring up the pitcher, rookie Nick Tropiano, making the start today. This is actually his 4th start, but the first start in the National League ballpark, which gives him his first major league at bat, and his family is here cheering him on because he's a native here of Long Island, of West Islip here in New York. And the first pitch is a call, strike 1 to Nick. His parents were all excited, cheering him on, friends and family. They're overjoyed. Nick Tropiano, 24 years old from West Islip. A call, strike 2. It's 0-2 on Nick. First and second, 2 out. Houston 1, New York Mets 1. His family is just gloating right now. And it's a little scribbler down the first base line. Colon will pick it up and just tag Nick for the 3rd out, and that ends the inning. And we'll head to the bottom of the second with the score tied 1-1 here in Queens, New York. We'll be back in a moment. Due up, we have Granderson, Flores, and Tejada. We're back here at the bottom of the second inning. The Mets will have up Curtis Granderson, Wilmer Flores, and the shortstop, Ruben Tejada. We'll continue on with our expansion talk. Just will give you a little education for the younger generation who doesn't know the history of baseball. Curtis Granderson came over from the Yankees a little over a year ago, and he hasn't had the best year, but he hopes it'll be much better next year. Curtis Granderson has mostly played right field this year with Juan Lagares in center field. Again, it's 1-1 here in the bottom of the second. Curtis Granderson, number 3, the left-hander, will step up to the plate. Every time I see number 3 on a Mets uniform, it still makes me think of Bud Harrelson back in the 60s, 69, 73 World Series. Curtis Granderson, again, only 229 this year. And the first pitch by Tropiano was in there for a call, strike 1. Yes, for those of you who don't know, the Giants and Dodgers, when they moved after the 57th season, one couldn't go without the other. It couldn't be only one team on the West Coast because at that time they were playing 22 games a year against each other. The second pitch by Tropiano to Granderson is just a little low for a 1-1. Wilmer Flores on deck, playing second base today in place of Daniel Murphy. Tropiano, the right-hander's pitch to Granderson. Low again, 2-1. Yeah, George Stoneham was the owner of the Giants, and Walter O'Malley talked George Stoneham into going out. They had to have a deal together. They had to work together to get to California. So basically, Walter O'Malley offered George Stoneham, what do you want? Los Angeles or San Francisco? George Stoneham chose San Francisco, and the rest is history. Most people in Brooklyn didn't like Walter O'Malley, but he actually did everything he tried to do to keep the Dodgers in Brooklyn. They originally wanted a stadium in Brooklyn, but Robert Moses said, this is where your stadium's going to be if you want to build where Shea Stadium eventually would be. He said, we're a Brooklyn team, and Brooklyn will stay or I will go elsewhere. And the rest is history. So without a National League team in place for 4 years when expansion came, for those of you who don't know, the Mets colors, orange and blue. They took the Dodger blue and the Giant orange, and that's their colors today. Next pitch, Curtis Granderson follows off, and the count is full at 3-2. The Washington Senators eventually moved again in 1971 and became today's Texas Rangers. Curtis Granderson grounds out to second for the first out of the inning. The Seattle Mariners eventually wound up in Seattle in the expansion of 77 when they brought that team and the Blue Jays into the American League, when actually they had 7 teams in the East and 7 teams in the West up until they split the divisions. The Tampa Bay Devil Rays came in 1999, and basically they kept that name for 10 years. And it's ironic, when they just dropped the Devil and went to the Tampa Bay Rays in 2008, they went to the World Series, of course, lost to Philadelphia. Wilmer Flores tries to bunt his way on and fouled it off for strike 1. Tropiano must have the adrenaline flowing today with his family and friends watching. First time pitching in the major leagues in front of his home crowd. The pitch by Tropiano. Flores fouls it off again, and it's 0-2. The last 2 teams to come into baseball were, again, the Tampa Bay Rays and the Arizona Diamondbacks in 1998. The Marlins and the Rockies came in the National League in 1993. And Flores flies out to the center fielder, Marisnak, for the second out of the inning. So there's 2 outs and nobody out on. 1-1 is the score. And over the years, the Los Angeles Angels have had quite a run. They had changed their names several times. 61 to 65, they were the California Angels, or the Los Angeles Angels. They were the California Angels for 30 years, from 1966 to 1996. Ruben Tejada steps into the plate. He's the shortstop today. And the first pitch is low and away for ball 1. And the Angels changed their name to the Anaheim Angels from 1997 to 2004. And from 2005 to the present, they are the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. The next pitch to Ruben Tejada, swing and a miss, and the count is 1-1. The Cincinnati Reds actually changed their name from 1954 to 1990 to 1959. They were the Cincinnati Redlegs, so all the communist talk and the word red, they preferred to be the Redlegs for those years. And Ruben Tejada just skirts the ball just past the shortstop for a base hit. So Ruben Tejada's on first base with 2 outs, and not a big threat to steal, but it's a possibility. Not really known for his speed, and that will bring up the catcher, Juan Centeno. Ruben Tejada first, number 11. Again, number 11 back from 69. We would think of Wayne Garrett, who used to platoon with Ed Charles, number 5, at third base. Ed Charles being a formidable third baseman in 69. Of course, now the number 5, which will probably be retired someday by the Mets, for David Wright. David Wright really hopes to have his shoulder completely healed next year and return for a better 2015 season. 0-1 to Juan Centeno. And Nick Tropiano is pitching from the stretch. Just hits the inside corner for strike 2. 0-2 to Juan Centeno. Yeah, baseball has a long history of teams moving and expanding. It is a business. The next pitch by Nick Tropiano is high. Throw to second. Tejada tries to steal, but he is out easily with the throw from the catcher, Max Stassi, for the third out. That ends the second inning with the score. The Mets won, and the Houston Astros won. And we'll be right back after these few messages.